Excuse me. That's a good start. We'll start again. Hi, this. No, I can't stop laughing. Concentrate. Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. No, I can't do it. Yes, I can. I'm a professional. Yay. Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. There are many ways to while away an afternoon, and I've chosen this one. It's getting late in the day. It'll be tea time soon. I haven't even decided what I'm going to have. But why I'm fiddling with this is that the way the sun's moving at the moment, it now comes through a gap in the hedge. And I was working on an orchid here this morning, and I kept getting this flash in my eyes, and it was the sun glinting on this silver stuff shining in my eyes, and I made up my mind then most of it, if not all of it, is coming off. I didn't put it on there, I bought it like this, and straight away there is an issue with the fact that the tree comes to an abrupt halt, a cut here, and there is no chosen leader because the wiring has turned everything downwards from that point, whereas something really ought to continue the tree, even if it continues it round, you know, in a curvy sort of way. But to have the three branches that come out almost together all pointing downwards seems a bit odd. Anyway, we are starting at the bottom and we're taking the big stuff off first. Now, I don't know what sort of wire this is, because all the wire I've got is either black or bronzy coloured and is aluminium coated, I believe, whereas this stuff is shiny silver. I think it's still aluminium because I can bend it easily. If it was any, you know, if it was steel or something like that, I'd never bend it. So now, how easy is it going to come off? I bought my thin nose pliers on the grounds that, you know, I'm going to need to manoeuvre this wire without damaging the tree. Now, what I plan on doing is unwinding this as best I can, and if it doesn't work, then we'll be cutting. I don't think it is going to work somehow. I think I don't know. It's unwinding. The idea being that, you know, the more you unwind, the less cuts you have to make and the less chance of your wire cutters digging into the tree. But I think we've come to branches now, so I think now's the time to snip at the trunk, shall we say. Let's see how easy this is going to be. This is when you find out how sharp your wire cutters are. I'm trying to eat in there. It's tempting, when you're using wire cutters like this type of shape, it's very tempting for your hand to slide. And then eventually you do that, and you pinch your finger in there, and you talk about it. You say all sorts of wonderful things about what an idiot you are. Polite version. But you know what I mean. It's I bet everybody's been caught like that at some point. I certainly have. And I've done it more than once in a single session, which is stupid, you know. To be caught once is bad enough, but 10 minutes later to do it again is a bit on the silly side, shall we say. But this is just a plod. It's just a matter of keeping going until it's all gone, really. However long that takes. The very thin wire that's on here, which in this case wraps around the thick wire. Now, I'm no professional wirer, but I know that's wrong. So let's get this thin one going. See, now that thin one's now crossed over by another one, so I now can't undo it without starting to do cuts again. But it's the big stuff I really want off. More than anything, because to me it's distracting. It's spoiling my enjoyment of the tree as it is now. Oh, I've just come to the end of that piece. Jolly good. So that's if I just cut that there, those both pieces will fall off. So that's one bit done. Now let's see if we can push the other one round. if you use pliers to undo wire, to unwind it, what you save is your fingers, because the ends of the wire can be quite sharp, and it's easy to lose your concentration looking at where the wire's going, and then the other end gets you. Right, so that's going to come right round here, so I can put it at that point. Getting there, that leaves one big bit that comes right back down to here. So we'll see what we can do with that. You can come off. What I'm worried about is that if I leave this on too long, it will cut into the trunk. Now, on some trees that provides character, but I don't believe it does on a larch. A larch has nice stripes on its bark, if not damaged. And I like that, so I don't really want those stripes to be taken off by wire marks. Now, on a gnarly old Scots pine or something like that, the wire marks will be lost eventually. They will just disappear into the gnarly structure of the bark. But that's not so with some. It's the same with maples. I mean, if you get wire marks on a maple, you've just spoiled that bit of the tree, really. So it's all very well saying, yeah, but I needed to get it into shape. Well, which is more important? You know, you have to make those decisions. Which is more important? Getting that branch in exactly the position you want at the expense of huge big wire scars, or not having it quite where you want because you had your wire loose and didn't bite into the bark. These are choices. So we must be coming to the end of this soon. Yes. So that's another piece. Come on, H, come. There we go. And this last piece, that's the end of the big stuff. Oh no, there's another big bit sticking up the top somewhere. Where does this bit go? That is the big bit that goes up the top. Alright, let's see what we can do with that then. Not quite sure that that little branch there needed a great big thick piece like that, but I think sometimes you just end up using the wire that you've got in your hand. And you know, okay, it's a bit large, but it'll be alright. It's not going to stay on there forever, is it? There's actually two bits on the go here, I think. A lot of old needles getting knocked off, which is good, I suppose. Now, if we don't cut this wire now, we're going to tear this branch. And we could even lose it. You have to go careful with big wire on small branches, especially when they're hooked inside another piece, on the grounds that, you know, if you pull, you could tear the branch right off of the trunk. So you've got to go careful. You've got to look at what you're doing every now and again. Like this bit here. The wire is far too thick for the branch, and as a consequence, if you try and unwind it, it's highly liable to tear the branch. So this is one that needs cutting carefully. Just won't cut. There we go. That's that piece, and then we've got another piece here which loops right round the branch. Try and cut it. So the wiring shape that's been used here is very good, but I'm getting a ringing sound in the background here that I am not quite sure what it is. I'm assuming it's my phone, but it's a noise I'm not used to hearing. So when I get this bit of wire off, now I'm going to break off and go and see what's going on. I'll be back. Right, well that was very strange. It's funny when you do things, sometimes you don't realise the full consequences. I'm treasurer of an orchid society, and as such we decided to change banks because we've had a bit of hassles with the one we're with. And as such, I opened 2 new bank accounts, a savings account, which we put our
long-term money in, and just a general normal current account, which is for our day-to-day stuff, as they say. And basically what I didn't realise is that I've got AA cover with that account. Well, it's an Orchid Society account. Who the hell's going to have the cover? I mean, it's going to be me because it was in my name, but that's not going to be deemed acceptable by the committee, I'm sure. Although I did do all the flipping work. Yeah, we're getting to the point now where the wire it's on such small branches in such thicknesses that these branches are not safe. Undoing the wire is highly liable to bend the branch, or worse still, bend its internal structure so that it messes up the path of nutrients and things like that. The wire's just too thick, which is all very well when it went on, but not when it's coming off. It's nice wire though, it feels nice, you know, so whatever it is. Right, so how much more do I want to take off? See, it's little tiny branches like this. I suspect that that branch is now detached from the trunk. It's very, very thin, and the wire has made it wrong, basically. So I'm actually going to take that branch off. I'll use my wire cutters because it's not sound. It's not viable. It's all been bent and bashed around. Now, when we get to branches this size, and the wire comes down here, that's not so bad, because if you start from this end, it makes life an awful lot easier. And I should be able to just unthread this piece very easily. And once I get to this point, the thickness of the branch is such that the wire was the right size. Whoops! If I knock that over, that's a hanging offence. We do not waste wine. I don't know why I brought it out here. Probably not going to get to drink much of it, I'm busy. Right, so that piece came off quite nicely. Now that branch could do with a little bit of pushing back, but not yet. We will wait. As I say, all I'm doing here is taking the wire off, which I'm sure while you're watching is dead boring, but well, we're having a bit more rain. We're getting a bit of that this week. Greatly appreciated. Boy, did we need some. And the beauty of that is I haven't had to water my bonsai for 4 or 5 days, because that was getting tedious. I'm sure it was for others as well. You know, a couple of good downpours now and again and you can get away with not going round the garden for a day or two. But while we had that heat, I suspect even if we had some showers, they wouldn't have been enough to keep your bonsai hydrated, not in those temperatures. Now, those are gone now, so we can get back to having a decent night's sleep. Oops, I'm going to move that. Decent night's sleep and not having to run around with watering cans endlessly. That's the theory anyway. As I say, I haven't had to water anything in the garden for quite a few days now. And also, as a consequence of the rain, part of the garden out there, don't forget this is a rental property, so it's not my garden, so not my choices, but there are gravel beds, which in a rental property is not a bad idea because it's low maintenance. But we have had an outbreak of weeds. Now they've just been sitting there waiting for some rain, the little tykes. So, and they make the gravel beds look quite unsightly, quite honestly. I don't know what I'm going to do with that bit. That bit just will not uncurl. It's the textbook end of the wire bit. You know, when you get to the end, you tuck it round on itself. But again, if it's a relatively thick bit of wire, it's difficult to get hold of it and start to unravel it. Again, this piece of wire on this branch is far too thick. So I'm having to hold each turn and undo each turn one at a time. Otherwise we're going to damage the branch. takes me back to there. Now we'll have some. Part of the reason I've decided to do this is a distraction. There are things going on north of the border and down here in London that are of grave concern on two fronts, not just one. And quite honestly, it's I often have our news on in the background because my laptop is virtually permanently on. If I'm awake, then it's normally on, and I'm up to things on the laptop, you know, all day long. They're not all relative to bonsai or orchids. I'm very into music. I like to listen to music. I like to investigate the history of the members of the bands and all that sort of stuff. So I'm busy on YouTube and Google. But what's going on today is, what's the expression we use? Disconcerting. You know, we've got people deciding that your way of life is going to be dictated by how much money you've got left over at the end of the month. And when you get to the stage where you haven't got any left over at the end of the month, you stop and think to yourself, well, why the hell am I going to work? What is the point? Because all I'm doing is pushing money into other people's pockets. And the bit that's left over at the end for my efforts is nil. And then you think it through and you think, and in quite a few cases it's negative. Because at the end of the month your outgoings are greater than your income. And there's nothing you can do about it. And we have people in charge that are effectively allowing that to continue when they have the power to stop it. And it's all wrong. But, you know, we now have a leader that we didn't choose. That's the system. That's not the individual's fault. That's just the system. That's the system that has evolved historically and all that cobblers. And we're now in a position where, well, is this a new situation where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Is this something new? No. It's got new words, it's got new ways of telling that story, but the story ends the same. And those that are well off want to think themselves incredibly lucky at the moment, because you're in the minority. And the majority are not doing well at the moment. And we have industrial unrest, I think is the word we use. There are other expressions you can use, like issed off, on the grounds that, you know, it doesn't matter what company you work for, but if the senior management, shareholders and owners, whatever you want to call them, combination of all those probably, are taking huge amounts out of the company and in the next breath saying that they can't afford to pay you any more, we are being lied to. It's not open to debate. If these are the profits and these are where they're going to get distributed and they're not going to go to the people who earned those profits, then we're being lied to. You know, I've heard various people. There was a guy from the post office thingy, whatever that, acorns blasting around, whatever that lot are called, basically representing the company on the news this morning. And having been asked a direct question many times, still refused to answer it. And the simple question was, are the bosses and directors and shareholders getting large dividends and bonuses? The basic answer was yes, they are. So why can't the workers have some? Why can't those few have a little less and the many have a little more? Everybody happy. The thing is, to me, it is such a simple thing. Still, the ways of the world. I mean, I worked for a company, an American company in the UK. Now that's a novelty. Car hire company, so no prizes for guessing which one it was. And their basic philosophy was, what do you call it? Triangle, tear down. This one up here gets a bit of that and a bit of that. These two here get a bit of that, and that, and that, and that. These down here get a bit of that, and that, and that. So this one up here is getting a bit of everybody for doing next to nothing. And down the bottom here are all the people earning the money and dealing with the customers. And did they get much? Did they? Hell. Way of the world and all that. My views, you might think my views are more biased towards Labour. You'd be wrong. My views are towards fairness. And fairness involves, in a company, it involves every single person, from the person who cleans up after everybody's gone home and empties the bin and polishes your desk, to the person who makes the major decisions on which direction the company's going and whether it needs investment or whether it's going to get involved with investments elsewhere, and deals with the big money. They're all the same company. God, I've only got one bit left. Yay! And wouldn't it be nice if the people at the top thought of that everybody thing? You know, we're all one company. We all do our bit. You know, and if the people that did the cleaning and, you know, did the catering and all those sort of tasks that I'm sure some people think are menial, but without them, it don't work properly. Without them, it's not as comfortable as it could be. And therefore, everybody is entitled to their share because they all did some of the work. Yay! I think that's it. And here endeth the politics. And you can go round in circles all day long talking about politics and coming up with solutions, and you won't make it any better. You'll probably make it worse. It don't work like that. Right, well, I'm happier that looks more like a tree now. I'm not happy with all the branches that are on there. This hasn't changed shape much, taking that big wire off, but it has opened up a little bit. We shall see. The one thing I do appreciate, that the tight turns that you put on a trunk in the younger days tend to blend as a tree gets more mature. And therefore those bends are, the need for them to be quite tight is quite important. But yeah, this will grow on quite nicely next year. Once I decide which branches I'm going to keep. I quite like this, but I'm not sure I want that up there. And if this comes down here, something's got to take its place. This has got a lot of growth on it, this little branch here. That's its first branch. That's good, because a larger first branch in proportion to the others always looks better. But then when you get up the top of the tree, these three branches up here are thicker than that one. So it's not right as it stands at the moment. But for less than 20 quid, it's a nice larch. And it is a Japanese larch, so it's got the nice soft green foliage. But we will work on that next year. I might just let it grow next year and just take the ends off. That'll push the buds, you know, and thicken up the... So a lot of these branches have no side branches at the moment. They're just single branches. So we need to get some more like this. We need to get more of that going on some of these branches. And once that does start to be going on, there's probably too many branches and some will have to come off. But at the moment, they're all just sticks out of the trunk. So we need to do something with that next year. But this is more like a larch branch, you know. If these were just taken back a bit, you can see the buds. They're very obvious on larch. You can come back from the end, bud, 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 bud. And they're often alternate, but sometimes they spiral. So you'll get one on the side, then one on the top, then one on the other side, then one on the bottom. So you need to choose carefully. But if you came back here, you could choose that bud, which will head off in that direction, because the bud you choose, that's the direction it will go in. And with larch, that is critical for shaping your branches. Almost like a, what do they call it, pinch and grow. You can choose where the next branch will go by choosing the bud that heads it off in that direction. Now unfortunately, the end of this branch was taken off for some reason, which is why they all go out sideways. But that could be dealt with, because a new one of these could, that could be deemed the extension of the branch if it's needed. And then these can be taken back long, medium, short, medium, long. And then you get your shape. So larch are very easy to work on. They almost tell you what they want to do. And all you've got to decide is that really what you want to do? But all these buds back on each one of these joints is capable of producing a branchlet coming off of the main branch. That is the selection that will be done in the spring, not now. So there we go, we have a heap of wire, we've done a bit of politics, and yeah, it must be tea time now. Surely it must be tea time. Although it's not necessarily quite tea time, because my wine glass has still got some in it. And normally I decide it's tea time when that needs filling up, because I have to go back in the kitchen to find where I put the bottle. There we go. Those of you who haven't realised yet, I like to chat. And I wander off around the subject. And I sometimes come back to where I started. Sometimes I end up on a distraction and end there. But yeah, hopefully in amongst that lot was for some food for thought. And a bit of bonsai stuff as well. Not a lot. As I said, this is a tree I bought with the wire on. So somebody else decided on its initial shape. I'll repeat, initial shape. That will not be its final shape. Somewhere along here I've got to decide where the current tree ends and the new leader starts. Do I want this tree going that way? Or do I want it to turn here, perhaps, and make this a new leader and do a trunk chop and get some taper? There isn't much taper on that. There's a little bit, but not a lot. That's too abrupt in my opinion. To do a trunk chop there would just be far too abrupt. And I'm not too keen on those dramatic trunk chops where you go from an inch thick trunk to an eighth of an inch stick. Because that will always be there. In 20 years time it will still go like that. I'm not too keen on that personally. It doesn't look natural. Decisions, but it could be like here. This might be a place to change direction at that point, yeah, and come back over, something like that. But we'll let it run for this year. We'll let it do its thing. It's not going to do much more this year anyway. It's going to settle down, getting ready for winter. And in the not too distant future, all the needles are going to fall off. That'll be fun. More mess all over my patio. Not that it could be much more messy. Right, enough waffle. That video has gone on far too long. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. I may have to do editing on this because there was an awful lot of waffle in there. So I may actually just take chunks out with the video editing software and just leave a more concise video. Yet to be decided. See you next time. Thanks for now. Thanks for drop down. Yeah, my mouth just will not work this afternoon, and I'm going to leave all these misdemeanors in because maybe somebody gets a giggle out of them. These heavily edited videos where everything is absolute perfection, there's never a word out of place. They're just a bit false, aren't they? People make mistakes, it's what people do, and I'm leaving them in. See you next time.